This is Casey with CAK Tutorials. Welcome to the JavaScript Basics of Parallax Scrolling tutorial. I want to start off with saying that this is not a part of the Basics of JavaScript tutorial set. Although this is a very simple tutorial, there is some assumed working knowledge of JavaScript. If you are interested in learning the basics of JavaScript itself, I will provide a link in the description for that playlist. I am also going to start off with a bit of a disclaimer. This tutorial only covers the basics of parallax scrolling. It does not cover the entire topic in depth. I am only providing one way of doing parallax scrolling. There are several methods for achieving the same thing. The script I'm providing is not meant for expandability or for building a fully functional parallax scrolling website. This tutorial is only meant to explain the concept of parallax scrolling and how it works. I am creating a script that, with very little knowledge of JavaScript, will assist in building a full parallax scrolling website. I'm calling this script CAK-Parallax, and I will provide a link in the description for that script. I will also be making video tutorials on how to use that script, which I will also provide links for in the description. So, what is parallax scrolling? Parallax scrolling involves elements on the page that move differently and sometimes independently of each other based off of the scrolling of the page. This includes the elements moving at different speeds and directions, as well as in different ways, such as rotating. This style can be used to create a more interactive website. It can give the page a 3D feel, or do animations that respond to scrolling. If you haven't already, I would Google parallax website. There are lists with many elegant and excellent examples of what's possible with this technique. So let's start off by jumping into our document, and as you can see, I have a couple of images here as well as a blank HTML document. I will provide any scripts and images, link in the description as well. And if I open this, you can see it is in fact a blank HTML document. So let's go ahead and start things off by creating some content here. I'm going to be creating some divs, some text, and a couple of images. So I'm going to give this div an ID of background 1, and I'm also going to place in here an image, and we're going to give this image a source of one of these images. We'll go image 1, and this is a PNG. We also need to provide an alternate name, so we'll just go image 1 and an ID of, you guessed it, image 1. I'm also going to create another div in here. I'm going to give this an ID of text 1, and I'm going to put in here CAK tutorials. Now I actually want a couple of different sets of content. So all of these second ones, I'm just going to change the image to the second image, and change all of these IDs. So we have background 1 and 2, image 1 and 2, and text 1 and 2. The next thing I need to do is do some styling. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we'll refresh just to kind of see. Here's our images, and here's some text. So for the styling on these, I'm going to start off with background 1. And for background 1, I want to give it a background color. And I'm just going to do black for this one. And then I also need to set the position. Now you can set this in different ways depending on what you're looking for. For this one, I'm just going to do a position of fixed. I'm going to set the top at 0 pixels and the left at 0 pixels. So it'll be right up in the upper left corner. I also want to set my height, let's do 600 pixels. And I'm going to set as the index so that we're sitting on top of everything at 1000 pixels. So if I go ahead and save that, we can see there we have it. Let's go ahead and set our width as well. And I'm just going to do this at 100% so that it takes up the entire width of this page. So there we go. The next thing I need to do is my image. So let's do image 1. And for this one, I'm just going to go ahead and set the position to absolute. And again, these things can be different for the purpose of this tutorial. I am going to be using absolute for my image and text areas. So I will do a top of 0 pixels and left at 0 pixels as well. And that's not going to change much. If we go ahead and take a look at this, we're still basically in the same place. So let's set our text. So text 1. So for text 1, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change my font family. Now, this obviously isn't necessary in order for this script to work. I'm just styling it the way I want to see it here, so we're going to use an Arial or Helvetica font, or any kind of sans serif font. I'm going to change my font size to 60 pixels. Now the color, we can't use black, so let's go ahead and change our color. And I'm going to change it the same as this eye, which happens to be 150, 150, 150 in RGB. So I will go ahead and set that. The next thing I need to do is set my position. And again, we're going to use absolute, just like our image. And then top, I'm going to do 200 pixels, and left, I'm going to do 500 pixels. So now if I save and refresh, this is what I was looking to see right here. So the next thing I need to do is style our second set of divs and images. So I'm just going to copy and paste this first set just to make things easier. I'm only going to be making a few changes, so let's first change our IDs, background 2, image 2, text 2. The next thing I'm going to do is change my Z index to 1001, so I can see here displayed as I'm on a fixed position and won't allow me to scroll. The other thing is I'm going to change my background. Now I'm using this 150 that I used for the font previously, and that's to be able to tell if we can see our background. The background will appear white. And then I'm also going to change the background to, or the color of the font to black on the second set of data. So if I go ahead and save that and refresh, here we kind of have the polar opposite. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring this 600 pixels down from the top, because our height of each of these is 600, so I basically want to stack them. So if I save that and refresh, we can see that now this is at the bottom here. Again, I'm not able to scroll because I have a fixed positioning. So that's fine. We'll go ahead and move forward with some JavaScript. So now we're going to jump down into our script area. And the first thing we need to do is we need to catch when somebody's scrolling. So the first thing I'm going to do is a window, add event listener. And this is going to be DOM mouse scroll. And we're going to send this to a function called page scroll. And just to make sure that this is cross-browser compatible, I'm going to check if on mouse wheel is in document. If it is in fact, then I'm going to set off that event, and I'm going to make it equal page scroll as well. So of course the next thing we're going to need to do is actually create our function, page scroll. And I'll just do an alert to make sure that we are working. I will refresh and scroll, and there we go, I see hi. So what do we need to do in here? Well, the first thing we need to do in our function is we actually need to get this event. So I'm just going to go ahead and put an E here as a variable in our argument. And first thing I need to do is check to see if, in fact, E exists. So if E doesn't exist, so exclamation point E. I'm going to make this variable event that I just declared equal window.event. Now, if E does exist, so I'll do an else, I'm going to make event equal E. So now if I do alert E, actually, let's do alert event, and I refresh and scroll, we'll see now we have our wheel event. So now we're pulling our event. So let's go ahead and just comment out that alert and move down to our next part. I'm going to declare another variable called delta. And we basically need to get which direction we're moving in. So we're able to get the wheel event. There's two possible ways of doing this. So again, to make this cross-browser compatible, I'm going to do an if statement, and I'm going to check if event dot wheel delta exists. Now if this exists, our delta variable will equal event dot wheel delta. And I'm going to remove this parentheses for now, and as we can see, I already misspelled something there, so let's fix that syntax and go down to our else. We're going to do an else if and check for event.detail. Now if event.detail exists, then delta is going to equal event detail. And we'll do another alert, and we'll alert delta. And I'll go ahead and save. And when I refresh, now when I scroll down, I get negative 120, and when I scroll up, I get a positive 120. So that looks good, except there's one problem. That problem being, if I go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to go ahead and open up Firefox. Now if I'm in here and I scroll down, I get a 3. Well, what happens when I scroll up? I get a negative 3. So as you can see, the first problem we have is when I scroll up, I'm getting a negative number. When I'm scrolling down, I'm getting a positive number. So let's go ahead and fix that right off the bat. I'll just go ahead and let you know that Firefox is actually pulling event.detail. So if I go ahead and in parentheses here, I'm going to take it times negative 1. So if I save and refresh, we can see now that down, and I know you can't tell which direction I'm scrolling, you'll have to take my word for it. But scrolling down, I get a negative 3, and scrolling up, I get a positive 3. Now we can see our second problem is that this is 120, and this is 3. So though our positive and negatives are the same, our values are actually different. Again, this is just a cross-browser problem, so let's go ahead and resolve our next problem. So for this one, I'm going to declare the variable move, and I'm going to make it equal 0 to start off. Next, I need to check if delta is in fact positive or negative. So if it's greater than 0, so we have a positive number, I'm going to head and set move to equal 20. But if delta is less than 0, then I'm going to make move equal negative 20. And I'm going to do another alert, this time on our new variable move. And as you can see, scrolling down, negative 20, up 20. And just to kind of show you that it's working in here too, I'll go ahead and bring it back up in here. Scroll down, I get negative 20. Scroll up, I get 20. So now we kind of have a standard. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of clean this code up a bit so that it's not taking up so much space. There we go. And I'm going to move on to our next part. So Our next part is we need to get information on these background elements. So basically we're going to want to change the position, the fixed position of these elements as we're scrolling. So in order to do that, first we need to declare some variables. So I will do background 1, and I'll make that equal document get element by ID background 1. And I'm going to copy and paste this, and I'm actually going to do background 2 variable equals background 2. So just making sure that our variables are working, let's go ahead and do a couple of alerts for background 1 and 2. I will save and refresh, and there's our -2. So here we have our first div element, and here we have our second div element. So now we're getting background 1 and background 2, these two elements up here. So I'm going to go ahead and comment out all of these alerts, and I'm going to move on to our next part. So the next part of the script is to actually get the background 1, and I'm going to have a new variable top. So I'm actually looking for background 1 offset top. Now we can see, if I go ahead and save this and refresh, and I scroll down, and I can see we have an offset top of 0. So that means we're at the this div is lined up with the top of the page here, or the window. So what are we actually looking to do? Well, what we're looking to do is we're actually looking to manipulate the position of this so that when I'm scrolling, it's changing the position of this background. So we've already set up our move variable up here, and if we're moving one direction, it'll equal 20, the other direction it'll equal -20. So if I just go ahead and add that on here, plus move, and save it, and I refresh and I scroll down, I can see that it equals -20. And if I scroll up, it equals 20. So it's taking that 0, and it's either adding or subtracting 20 based off of this move variable. So I'm going to comment out that alert as well. And now I want to actually move our background. So I'm going to go background 1 style top. So I'm actually going to change where the top of this is, and I need to change it to background 1 underscore top, because that's the one that equals our 20 or -20. And then I'm also going to add on px, because we're actually moving this in pixels. So if I save this, I can see as I'm scrolling it's moving, and I can scroll back and forth and it'll move up and down the page. But the one thing I'm noticing is background 2 isn't moving. So let's get background 2 to move. So up here we already designated the variable background 2 to equal the background 2 div. So let's go background 2 style top. So you may have noticed that I have only declared the variable background 1 top. And the reason for this is with only 2 elements, I can base the position of background 2 off of where background 1 is. And how can I do that? Well, the height of background 1 is 600. So if I just add 600 to here, and then of course I need my pixels, because we're specifying in pixels, then it'll stay 600 below where we're at. So if I refresh and start scrolling, now we can see our second div, and they move together. So with the exclusion of the scroll bar, we did a lot of work to basically get the page to scroll. So you might be asking yourself, why did we go through all of that work to manually scroll these items? Well, the reason is that we actually want to move elements differently. And in this tutorial, all I'm going to be focused on is scrolling these items basically at different values. So at different speeds. When I scroll, I want this eye to be moving differently than the text and differently than the background. So everything's kind of moving independently from each other. So let's start off with our image elements. So we'll declare another variable, image1, and we'll make that equal document get element by ID, and we'll do image1. Then of course we also need to worry about excuse me, image 2. So our variable image 2 will equal image 2. So what do we need to set on this? Image 1, we need to set the style top, and we need to actually make it equal, let's do another variable. We'll do image 1 top, and we need to add our pixels, our px at the end. So of course we haven't declared image 1 top, so let's actually go in there. I'm actually going to move this down here, and we're going to focus on our next variable, image 1 top. So what's image 1 top going to equal? Well, it's going to equal image 1 offset top plus move. So we're doing the same thing. Basically, we're going to scroll it the same speed as we are the background. The difference here being that since this image is contained within this div, it's actually going to appear to be moving twice as fast. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with image 2. So I'm going to go the image 2 offset top plus move, and that's image 2 top equals that, and again we are manipulating image 2 to image 2 underscore top. So if I go ahead and save now and refresh, we'll see our eyes are actually moving about twice as fast. So here's the beginning of actual parallax scrolling. Items on the page moving independently from another. These eyes are actually moving twice as fast as the backgrounds that they're being displayed on. So the next thing that we need to do is modify our text. So I'm going to scoot these together, and I'm going to do another variable, text1. And that equals the div with the ID text1, and we're going to do the same thing with text2. And again, we need to do variable text1 top, and we're going to make that equal text1 offset top, and this time we want to move it a little bit different. So let's make sure that we're moving at an even faster speed. So let's do move, which will equal 20 or negative 20 times 2. So we're going to be moving this twice as fast. So again, I'm going to need to actually set text1 style top to equal text1 underscore top variable plus px, since we're specifying this in pixels. And I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste, and we're going to do text2 underscore top. And now if I save this, so now we have our text moving twice as fast as our eye, which is already moving twice as fast as the background it's on. So now everything's moving at slightly different speeds here. Actually quite a big difference in our speeds. But the one thing you'll notice is that once I scroll down fully to page 2, where's our image and our text? Well, it's already scrolled way far up to the point where I can't even see it anymore. So now we actually have to go back into our styling, and we actually have to set these so that they're offset a little bit better. So image 1 is at the top is at 0 pixels, so that's fine. But by the time we scroll down here, so that the top of this div is at the top of the page, we know that we're scrolling 600 pixels because that is the height of this first area. So let's go ahead and change that so that image 2 is down from the top 600 pixels. So I'll save that and refresh. And as you can see, as I'm approaching this one, the eye ends up at 0 pixels top, so now it's being displayed on the page properly. So I also have to do that with my text too, and I've already done these calculations. So our top is actually 1400, and the reason why it's 1400 is this one's at 200 Okay, and we're going 600 pixels, but we're going twice as fast. So 2 times 600 is 1200, plus the 200 that we want to be offset equals 1400. So that's how I actually did the calculations to come up with this position. It's all based off of how fast we're scrolling it. So now as I save and refresh, and I scroll down, we can see as I'm reaching the background to div top to the top of the window, everything appears to be in the right place. But as I'm scrolling, things appear to be moving at different speeds. And that's because I'm actually modifying the placement of each element individually. And this is basically just the basics of how parallax scrolling works. So just the scrolling portion and getting things to move at different speeds, you can see that this sort of technique can be used to really do dramatic things. And you can even have things scrolling in from the side, or rotating, or fading in and out, or doing different sizing. There's a lot of different techniques. You'll notice that in this script specifically, the problem is that I can keep scrolling forever. If I want to scroll up, then I'm going to keep moving this stuff way far down. So obviously we need to set some limits on this. If I wanted to extend this to a third page, I would have to modify the script a little bit. So there's obviously some problems with this script specifically, but again, this is more just to show what's possible, and how do we actually start working with this? Well, we need to catch our actual event, and then once we do, we need to make sure that it's going to be cross-browser compatible, that we know which direction the mouse wheel is being scrolled, and we need to have a value that's going to represent how fast we're going to move things. And again, and I can multiply this by a smaller number if I wanted to do 0.2 so that it's moving quite a bit slower than the background. There's a lot of different ways that we can do this, and we can also start grouping things and making objects, or groupings of elements. Obviously a lot of different ways that we can start using this to create some really interesting effects. But again, on this tutorial, I'm just doing the very basics so that you have an understanding of how to get started with parallax scrolling. So again, I'm actually creating a script, and that script will be fully functioning in the sense where you don't even need to go through all of this JavaScript. All of the JavaScript is already included, and you can modify these divs based off of a new parallax attribute that I gave it. So again, I'll put a link in the description for those tutorials on how to use that script, and a link for the script at the bottom. Feel free to ask any questions on this, or if you'd like me to do a more advanced parallax scrolling and get it more into depth about, after the starting point, where do we go from here, and how do we get things to move in from the side and so forth. So please like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you next time.